Well, it's time now for a look at today's international press with Florence Filomeno, who joins me now. Hello, Florence.
Hi, Lorna.
OK, so we're going to start off with the Eurozone crisis. As ever, still getting a lot of coverage.
Still getting a lot of coverage. It's on the front page of The Independent today. It says a fresh blow for the Eurozone as Greece seeks more help. Now, yesterday saw more clashes between anti-austerity protesters and police in Greece. And, of course, there were violent protesters in Greece and Spain throughout the week. Now, all this is happening while governments are presenting their 2013 budget plan in Spain and here in France that is proven to be have quite a lot of cuts and be moving towards more austerity. And there's a cartoon in the International Herald Tribune that tries to see the irony in the situation. And you see Greek in the background there, you see Greek protesters fighting with anti-riot police. And meanwhile, there's a politician there holding on to papers that say cuts and austerities. And he's saying there's one budget item we need to increase, and that's the police.
Of course. OK. Well, meanwhile, moving on to another story, the UN General Assembly is also getting a lot of attention. And this week, several world leaders gave speeches focusing on the Middle East in the wake of the Arab Spring.
That's right. There's a really interesting piece by Adrian Hamilton in The Independent today that analyzes the speeches by Barack Obama and David Cameron. And he says that they were trying to own the Arab Spring. And because on the face of it, uprisings in the Middle East should be working in favor of the West with their calls for democracy, freedom, and openness. But according to Adrian Hamilton, get real, the Arab Spring is no endorsement of the fact of the West. And in fact, there are actually clear tensions between the West and the Arab world that's moving towards democracy. There's a gulf of understanding, he says, that's widening. And according to Hamilton, this is due to the hypocrisy in the speeches that were made by Barack Obama and David Cameron. For instance, Barack Obama, he supported uprisings in Egypt, Libya, etc., but ignored the other cases where peaceful protests were put down violently, for instance, in Bahrain. Also, he was critical of attacks on civilians, but completely ignored the fact that the U.S. Uses drones to attack foreign soil. Also, he was critical of Iran for trying to, for their nuclear ambitions, but never at all mentioning the fact that they support Israel, which refuses to join the Non-Proliferation Treaty. So according to Hamilton, all this breeds mistrust within the Arab world. And if Barack Obama and David Cameron want to build a relationship of trust, they have to mean what they say.
OK, well, speaking of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu's getting a lot of attention in the press for his speech at the UN yesterday with that sort of so-called red line stunt that he pulled.
The red line stunt, and especially the bomb graphic, that's getting a lot of press, starting in Israel. Yediot Aharonot, the centrist paper, looks at how politicians in Israel are reacting, and there's a mixed bag of reactions, although most people are quite critical of them, for different reasons, however. For instance, the opposition, Kadima, they say that he drew this beautiful graphic, but he failed to draw an effective international roadmap towards stopping Iran's nuclear program. The Labour Party had a similar point of view. They said that they lament the fact that Netanyahu didn't manage to meet Obama, so all this was just a gimmick. Meanwhile, even members of the government, especially hawkish members of the government that want to attack Iran, they're also critical, saying that Netanyahu was wasting precious time.
OK, well, there's been a lot of sniggering at that little diagram they had, but he isn't the first leader to use questionable graphics.
That's right. There's a really funny piece in the Daily Beast that looks at other goofy political charts. So I've pulled out a couple. There's Ronald Reagan there. He used this old school graphic that looked like it was drawn on craft paper with he was talking about federal tax regulation, so not his greatest communicator moments. And there's also Bill Clinton, who used this beautiful American flag-decorated chart when he was talking about debt in 2010. There you see him drawing on the graphic, and he said that there wouldn't be any debt by the end of 2010, but unfortunately, history didn't follow his magic market.
It didn't quite bear out the way he hoped. OK, well, finally, 3 men, including a Canadian police officer, have been arrested in a curious case of cheese smuggling. Tell us more about
smuggling. This is suspected of being part of a major cheese smuggling ring. Now, they're suspected of smuggling cheese from the U.S. into Canada, and this is no joke. It's very serious. So the 3 people have been charged with conspiracy and for violating customs for allegedly transporting $200,000 worth of cheese without paying any tax. Now, the arrest took place after a 9-month investigation. Now, the reason behind this, according to Gawker, is because cheese is absurdly cheap in the United States. But I wonder what gave them away. Perhaps it was the smell.
Maybe so. Well, thanks very much indeed, Florence, for that look at today's international newspapers.